Discover the 5 sinister rules exposed by a haunted night train conductor from Halifax to Montreal. The night train groaned as it chugged out of Halifax, its rhythmic clattering echoing through the dimly lit car. Jane, a 34-year-old single mother, clutched her sleeping son close, trying to find comfort in the warmth of his small body. Outside the window, darkness reigned, dense woods swallowing the outside world whole. Her heart felt heavy with the weight of her painful divorce, a wound that still stung. But here, on this train, she hoped for escape, a new beginning. Instead, a creeping unease settled in her gut like a stone. As she gazed at the flickering lights, a tall, stooped figure appeared at the end of the car, the conductor. His eyes were sunken, and when he smiled, it felt more like a grimace. "Welcome aboard," he said, his voice low and gravelly, hinting at secrets veiled beneath the surface. "I've got some stories to share about this train." Jane's skin prickled. What could he possibly know? "You see," he leaned closer, shadows dancing over his face, "everyone has a past." The first tale he spun was about lost souls, passengers who had vanished without a trace, devoured by the night, lost in a limbo that echoed with regret. As the shadows seemed to sway beside her, whispers of despair slithered into her mind, teasing out her fears. The weight of her ex-husband's betrayal clawed at her throat, merging with the cold chill that seeped through the air. The conductor's voice dripped with an unworldly urgency as he shared his 5 rules for survival aboard this haunted train. With each rule, Jane felt a tightening in her chest. "First," he began, "trust no one, not even yourself." The urgency surged through her. Was there a danger lurking right here among the other passengers? Around her, faces flitted with terror, wide eyes caught in a silent scream before they vanished into the oppressive darkness, swallowed up by fear. Jane's breathing quickened. She felt like the hunted, prey to a darkness that wanted her pain. The conductor continued, revealing the second rule: do not ignore the shadows. Simple enough, yet the intensity in his tone made her stomach drop. Before she could process the implication, his third rule echoed in her ears: keep your heart guarded. Those words resonated deeply with her. Her heart had already been so fragile. Unable to look away, she focused on the glowing numbers flashing overhead. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side." The screen. Now, let's continue. As the chilling wind howled outside, Jane's surroundings shifted. The air thickened. The conductor leaned in closer, sharing the 4th rule: never underestimate the past. Instinct screamed at her. Memories of her past danced like phantoms, taunting her in the edges of her mind. It felt terrorizing to confront what lurked there. Then suddenly, the train lurched violently, lights flickering, sending echoes of panic through the car. Jane clutched her son as the powdery shadows shrieked in fury surrounding them. "The final rule," his gravelly voice rose above the chaos. "Stay awake. You are never alone." Her heart pounded in her chest as she faced the darkness welling up around her. Was the man clad in that uniform truly just an eerie storyteller? Or did he guard sinister secrets that bound the souls aboard this forsaken train? As a deep growl rattled through the iron frame, Jane fought against the wave of terror gripping her body. The lights were out completely, plunging them into a void. A question surged within her. Could she escape its clutches before they claimed her and her son? The night whispered warnings, wrapping them in an unseen dread. Darkness coiled closer. The darkness was an all-consuming blanket, heavy and thick, smothering sound and light. Jane's eyes strained to adjust, heart racing, each beat echoing in her ears like a distant drum roll of impending doom. Her son stirred, mumbling softly in his sleep. It was a precious sound, a reminder of innocence, yet it made her more desperate, urging her to protect him at any cost. Stay awake. The conductor's warning resonated deep within her, mingling with the stifling air. She shifted in her seat, the chilly fabric of her coat scraping against her skin. Instinctively, she turned to the other passengers, but saw only flickers of pale faces before shadows enveloped them once more. They, too, were caught in the enthrall of the darkness, nearly lost to its hungry grasp. Suddenly, an unsettling scream pierced through the void. It didn't sound human. The guttural cry echoed of agony, fear, and desperation, reverberating down the corridor of the car. Jane jolted, clutching her son tighter against her chest. She could feel the raw tremor of her own pulse against his fragile body. The train was no longer just moving. It felt alive, as if carrying something more sinister than mere passengers through the night. "Help!" A voice breathy and broken. "Someone, help!" "Mama," her son mumbled, his tiny fingers instinctively wrapping around her arm. Jane swallowed hard, the adrenaline coursing through her system, spurring her into action. She had to move. "I need to get you out of here," she thought desperately. Her eyes searched the darkness, and with every gust of wind that rattled the windows, the ominous presence of the conductor loomed at the back of her mind. "Trust no one, not even yourself." His words morphed into a chant of warning, disorienting her. No one else seemed to react to the scream that echoed in her ears. They remained frozen, either lost to fear or resigned to their fates. But Jane couldn't accept that. "Wake up," she whispered to the other passengers. "Wake up, we need to leave." A flicker of life returned to a woman across the aisle, blinking slowly as if awakening from a dream. Panic filled her eyes, and then she looked to Jane, realization dawning. "What's happening?" "I don't know, but we have to stick together," Jane urged. But a creeping dread coiled around her heart. Would one of them betray the others in this suffocating darkness? At that moment, the lights blinked back on, but the brightness flickered wildly. Dancing shadows painted the faces of the passengers. Those who had been mere silhouettes now looked like wax figures with hollow eyes and twisted mouths, frozen in fear. A wave of nausea washed over Jane at the grotesque sight. Then she heard it again, softer this time, a whisper flowing through the aisles, brushing against her skin like a frosty breath. "Leave, leave." Before she could react, the train jolted again, listing to one side. The frightened cries rose, a crescendo of hysteria that filled her with a primal fear. "Hold on tight," Jane shouted, instinctively clutching her son closer as she braced for impact. The train was spiraling into chaos, and in that fleeting moment she realized the truth. There was no escape without understanding what truly lurked in the shadows of their pasts. And then, from the corner of her eye, she spotted something flash, a flicker of light darting across the darkened car. Was it hope, or something far more malevolent, beckoning her into a deeper abyss? With dread settling in her stomach, Jane took a deep breath. They had to move. They had to find out what or who was behind that light. Would it offer salvation or lead them to greater horrors? As they teetered on the precipice of decision, the question hung in the smoky air. What would they uncover when they stepped into the light? The train shook violently, metal screeching against metal. Jane pressed her son against her chest, murmuring softly, "It's okay, baby, just hold on." He trembled in her arms, eyes wide with fear. Behind her, the other passengers echoed the panic, some shouting, others weeping. The flickering lights cast ominous shapes across the train car, revealing something deeper than mere fear, a rippling terror that seemed to breathe with life. Where's that light? She thought frantically. Time was slipping away, the train hurtling into darkness. The glow had seemed so close, a beacon amid the suffering. But as she scanned the crowded car, all that lingered in her vision were the ghastly faces, eyes like voids, mouths twisted in silent screams, as if they were each a warning of what lay ahead. "Stay here," she ordered the woman who'd finally awoken, brandishing a desperate resolve. The woman nodded, gripping the edge of her seat like it was the last anchor in a storm. With her heart racing, Jane edged along the aisle, her breath coming in sharp bursts. Just a few more steps, she urged herself, every fiber of her being screaming for escape. The cacophony around her rose and fell, a tide of fear as the train careened toward an unseen nightmare. A sudden thud echoed from the rear of the train, a sound that reverberated through Jane's bones. She turned instinctively. The source of the noise lay in shadows. The conductor, illuminated only by snaking bursts of light that hissed like serpents. His eyes seemed to pulse with something ancient and unspeakable. "Leave," he murmured, almost hypnotically, dark words that slipped through the gaps between screams. "You should have left when you had the chance." Jane flinched, an icy shiver creeping down her spine. "Stay away from my son!" she shouted, an involuntary desperation fueling her stance. "Nothing but voices, Jane," he rasped. The flickering light behind him danced erratically, reshaping the contours of his figure into cruel parodies. "Lies and echoes of who you once were. It never ends. You never leave." Ignoring the fear that clawed at her throat, Jane turned back to the aisle. Each step felt monumental, like she was walking on shards of glass. "Mama, where are we going?" her son whispered, clutching her tighter. His wide eyes were both terrified and trusting, and in that moment Jane knew she couldn't fail him. "We're going to find the light," she assured him, though doubt crept into her mind. Yet, as she pressed forward, the voice returned. "You cannot escape your past. It follows, always." Another scream rippled through the car, a reminder of the visceral fear shared by those trapped. She pushed through the herd, desperate to reach the dim flicker, which felt further away than ever. They had to find it. That tiny point of light could be their only hope, or perhaps a trap deepened by their own anguish. As they neared the back, the lights blinked out completely, plunging them back into suffocating darkness. An electric buzz filled her, and she felt a sudden terrible chill. The darkness was not empty. Something lurked, unseeable but palpable, feeding off their dread. "Mama," her son cried, voice piercing through the silence. "I'm scared." "Just hold on to me." She could hear her heartbeat, a wild drum against the abyss, urging her forward, ever closer to the light. But that whispering voice returned, chilling her blood. Leave, leave. What lay beyond that last step? Was the light her salvation, or the beginning of their end? As Jane stepped just beyond the threshold, the darkness trembled. The flicker intensified, its glow expanding, revealing shapes in the shadows. Faces she thought she'd never see again. Faces she thought were lost forever. "Look!" a woman's voice shouted, breaking through the terror. "It's just ahead! We can make it!" The moment hung heavy in the air. Would they find their way to safety, or merely confront the specters of their own making? With breath caught in her throat, Jane moved toward the blinding light, uncertainty weighing heavily on her mind. She had to know. They all did. What awaited them when they crossed that threshold into brightness? Did they dare find out? The light enveloped them, warm and blinding, but Jane quickly felt a rush of wrongness. They stumbled forward, seeking refuge that skirted just out of reach. In an instant, the warmth turned frigid. She felt a hand on her shoulder, a grip like iron, and her breath hitched. "Mama," her son whimpered. "Stay close," she barked, twisting to face the specter that held her. Shadowy tendrils spun from the figure, darting like strikes of electricity. As the light diminished, harsh reality surfaced. This was not salvation, but a threshold to another nightmare. The faces emerged fully. They were distorted, twisted versions of the living and the dead, mouths wide in silent screams. An old man with hollow cheeks lunged at her, eyes ablaze with unholy fire. Beside him, a little girl with matted hair stared, her gaze chilling. "Help us!" The old man's voice slithered through the air. "No!" Jane shouted, ripping away from the grip and sprinting forward. Panic gripped her heart like a vice, urging her toward the exit. "Mama, I don't want to go," her son cried, tugging at her hand. "Please," she begged, desperately yanking him with her. The train groaned, metal shrieking under the weight of the suffocating terror. The flickering lights throbbed, throwing the figures into jagged relief. The conductor's voice echoed once more, a sinister song rising and falling like a cursed wind. "This is where you belong. You cannot escape." They burst into the next car, a stench of sweat and fear wafted over them. The occupants gaped, eyes turned vacant, mouths trembling open like dead fish. The car was empty, but felt alive, as if the air itself pressed against them, thick with dread. "Why are they staring?" her son whimpered, trembling. "They're trapped," Jane murmured, realizing with horror that this was another stop in the cycle. She could feel the ghostly presence gathering around them, ready to ensnare. Suddenly, shadows spilled from the corners, coiling around their legs. A low growl stirred the dimness. "Join us," a voice hissed, the sound splintering into laughter that echoed against the walls. Jane felt a cold sweat drench her, the shiver crawling up her spine with the threat of invasion. "We have to run!" she yelled, pulling her son with her, his small feet scrambling against the metallic floor. They dove through the doorway into the next car, but Jane halted as she faced an expanse where the light flickered out again. This car was adorned with memories, ghostly images of laughter and warmth, now warped into grotesque celebrations of the dead. Faint strains of a melody she recognized echoed, taunting her with echoes of days past. "I don't want to see this," her son cried, burying his face against her shoulder. "They can't hurt us," Jane lied, though her heart pounded with doubt. She pushed through the chilling air, sweat trickling down her spine. Yet the ghostly laughter echoed around them, closing in. "You cannot escape," it echoed endlessly, filling Jane with a suffocating dread.
Exiting the swirling darkness, they stumbled onto a final stretch of gleaming tracks. But the light flared violently, shards of it locked in place as if the train itself was putting up a barrier. The relentless sound of the past summoned all their traumas, regrets, and fears into a cacophony that threatened to tear Jane apart. "Get ready," she screamed to her son. "We're jumping!" With one last surge of frantic determination, she pulled him close, ready for whatever lay ahead, standing on the edge of confrontation. Could they leap into the unknown, or would the darkness reclaim them, sealing their fate with nothing but memories? The train lurched violently, and all at once the brakes shrieked, threatening to drag them back into horror. They had to choose, fight for freedom or surrender to the chaos brewing behind them. As they prepared to jump, time froze, and all they could hear was a whisper. "You cannot leave." What awaited them down the tracks? Would the leap lead to safety, or plunge them deeper into despair? The world collapsed around them. Just as Jane tightened her grip on her son and prepared to leap, the train seemed to shudder and expand, stretching her resolve with it. She felt the jagged stares of countless souls behind her, and the whisperings clawed at her ears. "You cannot leave." Then, silence. For a sickening heartbeat, the screeching pull of fear faded, replaced by an oppressive stillness. The lights flickered, then extinguished completely, plunging them into utter darkness. Jane's heart hammered faster as she heard her own breath mingling with her son's shallow gasps. The previous cacophony of horror faded, as if they were trapped in a void all their own. "Mama?" His voice cracked. She could feel the cold sweat on his tiny brow. "Shh," she urged, but the darkness pressed in as uncertainty slithered like a living thing around them. Just as she thought they would be free, the weight of dread tightened at her throat. A train whistle wailed in the distance, then echoed eerily in the void around them. It sounded wrong. The sound resonated like a funeral dirge, a sound that mourned those who were lost, not of hope. "Stay close," Jane whispered, her voice quaking. Every instinct screamed for her to shield her son, but a growing realization clawed at her mind. They were still on the train, still trapped. Suddenly, the lights flared back on, flickering erratically, revealing an old train car, dim and neglected, as though time had forgotten it. Several empty seats lined the walls, objects of an old life now consumed by dust and darkness. Her heart dropped. Each seat told a story, though they were never meant to be heard again. Out of the corner of
her eye, she caught movement. A shadow darted across the next car, a flutter of fabric, just like the whispering that surrounded her. "Mama!" her son whimpered, sensing her fear. "Just hold on," she murmured, biting back the despair rising in her throat. As they crept forward, she heard laughter again, but it was different, unsettling, and full of malice. It drifted closer, echoing through the car, snaking its way into her ears. The laughter shifted, morphing into cries, into the anguished voices of the souls they had brushed against. "Join us! Join us!" The door at the front of the car creaked open, revealing a shadowy specter. Its outline glimmered with a faint greenish hue, but Jane's instincts screamed danger. It stepped forward, eyes burning through the darkness like embers set free. "Welcome," it hissed, the word dragging out like a long-forgotten secret. "You've entered our realm. Join the feast of memories." Jane felt bile rise in her throat. "Get away from us!" she shouted, dragging her son back as she fumbled for a way to escape. "No escape," the specter rasped, its voice sickly sweet as it beckoned with skeletal fingers. You cannot resist. You belong with us. You have a past to unravel. And then it came, a rush of visions sizzling beneath her skin, memories that weren't hers. Faces of strangers, screams lost in the wind, laughter twisting into horror. She stumbled backward, feeling the weight of grief and loss pile like stones on her chest. "We don't belong here," she screamed, but the shadows closed in closer, whispering her son's name, seducing him to the darkness. "Stay away!" Jane pulled him to her, but icy fingers gripped her ankle, yanking her down. She fought, struggling against the gloom that threatened to drown her, but it tugged harder, relentless. "Mama!" Her son's terrified voice cut through the chaos, desperation bleeding into every syllable. Jane's heart raced, adrenaline surging. With one explosive surge, she ripped free and dashed toward the door. The specter recoiled, screeching as it clawed at her mind, but a flicker of determination shone through the terror. "Jump!" she screamed. As they hurled themselves into the unknown, an otherworldly howl echoed behind them. What waited on the other side? Was it freedom or another trap? Only the vast unknown beckoned them forward, and Jane shivered at the idea of what awaited them next. They landed hard, sprawled on unforgiving metal, breathless as darkness swirled around them. Panic surged through Jane's veins. The air tasted stale, harsh against her lips. She scrambled to gauge their surroundings, heart racing, eyes wide with primal fear. "Where are we, Mama?" her son whispered, clutching her hand. The echo of the specter's cruel laugh still stung her ears. "I don't know, baby," she breathed, each word a struggle against the weight pressing down on her soul. "But we'll find a way out." The train car they found themselves in was eerily quiet, nauseatingly still. Heavy shadows clung to the corners, almost alive. Jane felt eyes upon them, judging, waiting. Was this another trap? "Mama, I don't like it here," he shivered, looking up at her, tears welling in those innocent eyes. She squeezed his hand tighter, summoning strength from his small grasp. "Just hold on to me." They rose cautiously, a slow survey of their surroundings. Rows of empty seats stretched before them like tombs. Dust motes floated in the faint light that flickered hesitantly from dim overhead bulbs. Jane felt a chill crawl down her spine as she caught sight of etched symbols on the walls, the intertwining lines forming grotesque runes, seemingly pulsating with dark energy. It reminded her of stories long forgotten, of places where the living should not tread. "We have to move," Jane insisted, stepping forward. Each footfall sounded too loud, reverberating as if waking the spirits around them. They edged toward a door at the far end, a promise of escape waiting just beyond it. But dread gnawed at her, whispering that the darkness had its own designs. As they approached, the door creaked open on its own, revealing a darkened hallway lined with flickering bulbs that hummed ominously. Jane hesitated. "What if we're not alone?" she murmured, a shiver racing through her. A chilling breeze swept through, wrapping around them like icy fingers. The whispers intensified, curling in her ear. "Stay, stay with us." Gritting her teeth, Jane stepped into the hallway. "Don't let go," she urged her son, who nodded, his small face a mask of fear and determination. Suddenly, a voice drifted down the corridor. "You've arrived just in time," it crooned, a tantalizing blend of welcome and menace. It wasn't the specter, it was something else, something living among the shadows. "What do you want?" Jane shouted, her voice wavering but firm. She clutched her son closer, her instincts screaming danger. "Join us, or be lost forever," the voice sang, echoing from the depths of the darkness. "There are rules,
Rules to survive the night. Ignoring the pit in her stomach, Jane pressed on, moving toward the voice. She had to know. What rules? It said, its tone gleeful. Never look back. Never question the darkness. It will consume you. Jane's heart pounded. The voice enveloped them like a thick fog, suffocating and sweet. What was happening here? Was this another trap, another game the spirits played? She felt the urge to flee, but the weight of the specter's promise bound her to this moment. Rule number 2, it continued, trailing off as if savoring the anticipation. But before it could finish, a thunderous roar echoed throughout the train, shaking the very structure beneath her feet. It was as if the entire train screamed in anguish. "Run!" Jane screamed, dragging her son as terror ignited all around. The walls pulsated and shadows writhed, blurring the line between reality and nightmare. She could feel eyes watching, lurking in hidden corners, intrigued and hungry. What was waiting beyond the door? Did the rules
hold the keys to their survival, or was it already too late? The unrelenting echo of the voice lingered in her mind, a haunting melody that promised both salvation and doom. They darted down the hallway, the sound of their footsteps swallowed by the chaotic chorus of fear. What was the third rule? And did they have the courage to face what lay ahead? They sprinted down the hallway, the flickering bulbs above casting blinding shadows that twisted and clawed at them. Each step thudded with urgency, hearts pounding like a drum, signaling a march toward doom. The walls felt alive, breathing with the weight of so many trapped souls. "Mama, I'm scared," her son cried, his voice cracking under the pressure of panic. "I know, baby, just keep running," Jane gasped, glancing at the pulsating darkness behind them. It seemed to stretch out like a hungry maw, waiting to swallow them whole. The echo of the voice taunted her, "Join us, or be lost forever." It rang in her ears like a death knell, amplifying her anxiety. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were already part of whatever game was being played, a pawn sliding across some nightmarish board. Ahead, she spotted a door at the end of the hallway. It loomed like a beacon, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. "There, we can make it," she urged, her feet moving faster, adrenaline pushing her muscles beyond their limits. But just as they neared it, the air thickened, a dense fog rolling in from nowhere. She could barely see, the darkness stinging her eyes, bearing down on her like a weight. "What's happening?" Jane whimpered, dread creeping into her thoughts. The voice echoed again, sinister and mocking. "You can't escape your fate." Suddenly, something darted past them in the shadowy haze, barely visible but undeniably there. Jane froze for a heartbeat, fear anchoring her feet to the ground. "Did you see that?" she whispered, her breath hitching. Her son nodded, wide-eyed. "What was it, Mama?" "I don't know," she admitted, pulling him closer. "Just keep moving." But the shadows around them began to twist, morphing into vague shapes that teased her vision. They flickered like flames, and Jane imagined ghostly figures rising from the floor, stretching toward them with outstretched arms. A shudder ran through her. Were they already dead? Within that moment of inaction, the voice coiled tighter around her. Rule number 3. Don't question the shadows. They know your deepest fears. In that instant, the hallway seemed to pulse as a chorus of whispering voices joined in on that terrible rule. It felt like 1,000 thoughts of despair crashing around her, echoing her own swirling fear. Jane shook her head, trying to block them out. "We can't listen." She lunged for the door.
The handle turned with a sickening, slow creak, and she shoved it open, launching herself through the threshold. Fresh air, or what passed for it in this nightmarish place, hit her.
Face like a slap. They stumbled into a chamber, much larger than the confines of the train. Dim lights flickered above, revealing a grisly sight. Shattered mirrors lining the walls, reflecting fractured images of herself and her son in myriad states of terror and despair. "Mama, what is this?" he whimpered, falling to his knees. Jane scanned the room, despair wrapping around her heart like a vice. "I don't know, but we can't stay here." The decor shifted. The images in the mirrors morphed into grotesque, nightmarish faces, mouths twisted into manic grins. Their laughter clawed at the air, a cacophony of madness. "Look in there," one reflection hissed, pointing toward a mirror that shimmered with dark energy. "You'll see your fate." She grabbed her son's hand, pulling him near. "No, we can't. Don't look." But she felt the mirror's pull tug at her very essence, excitement and horror flooding her mind. "Rule number 4, the voice sang, its tones syrupy sweet. Always confront your reflection, for it reveals what you truly are." As the whisper faded, Jane felt cold fingers brush against her skin, pricking at her resolve. "Come now, would you dare to know the truth?" For a second she hesitated. Then, fueled by terror and a burning need to protect her child, she turned to her son. "We can't stay, not here, not ever." But what if it was too late? A chill traveled through her spine as horror dawned on her. What awaited on the other side? When would the final rule come crashing down upon them? They bolted forward, leaving the detestable room behind, but that temptation lingered, teasing them as they ran. Shadows danced at the periphery. What awaited them next? "Are we safe, Mama?" "I don't know." A shift lurked in the darkness ahead, drawing nearer with each step. The walls trembled as they moved deeper into the unknown. But the voice returned, more sinister than ever. "Ah, but you haven't heard the last rule." Jane's heart raced. What was the last promise of this twisted realm, and could they survive it? Jane pushed through the flickering shadows, the air thickening with every frantic step. Her son pressed close to her side, his small hand clammy in hers, their breaths coming in ragged bursts. The oppressive darkness felt like a weight, and Jane fought to shake the idea of their reality. Was it real, or simply a torturous nightmare? "Stay close, baby. Don't let go of me," she urged, glancing behind them. The hallway warped, stretching as if it lived and breathed all around, suffocating them with the promise of despair. The voice echoed again, smooth as silk and dripping with malice. "You're only delaying the inevitable." "What does that even mean?" Jane choked out, battling glimpses of dread swirling in her mind. She turned down another corridor, more disheartening walls stretching endlessly ahead. Each turn felt like a trap, a new layer of hell revealing itself with each heartbeat. A curtain of fog flickered before her, pulling her vision and distorting the way ahead. Among the shadows, hushed whispers coiled around her, and she felt bile creeping up her throat. "There's something wrong with this place," she said, dread licking her spine. "Why can't we go home?" her son asked, eyes wide and glistening with tears that reflected the pale light. "We'll find a way, I promise," she lied, fighting back unhelpful fears. "We'll find the exit." As if mocking her statement, a cacophony erupted from hidden corners of despair, a chorus of anguished screams melding with eerie laughter. The sound made her bones chill, and she pressed forward, dragging her son with her, hoping to escape the horror that seemed to claw at their heels. In a moment of horror, the walls began to bleed shadow, swirling dark tendrils snaking around her legs, binding her. Panic filled her. She pulled harder on her son's hand. "Run!" With a surge, he broke free as he gave a frantic yank, and they rounded another corner. The voice lingered still, like a shadow, whispering promises of despair. "You know the rules, don't you?" it taunted. "Which rules?" she shouted into the void, heart racing as adrenaline fueled her movements. Desperation filled her mind. Dread and confusion fought for dominance. "What do you want from us?" "Oh, but you must discover it for yourselves." The laughter echoed back, now closer, sharper, as she continued to run, ignoring the heat pricking her neck. Before them, an ominous door creaked slightly ajar. Its dull light suggested a way forward, but also a new terror lurking behind. Should they dare? "Don't go in, Mama, please!" her son cried. "Stay here then," she shouted back, locking her gaze to the door. She felt the shadows tugging at her again, horrified memories flickering past her, memories of things she couldn't quite remember. She hesitated, torn between safety and the urge to flee. With every ounce of courage, she stepped toward the door, heart mimicking its eerie rhythm. There was a brightness within, tinged with a sinister promise that felt like it could swallow them whole. Her intuition screamed to turn away, yet they were shackled by fate, their choices stripped from them. But the rhythm of her heartbeat drowned out the sound of that horrible voice saying, "You must learn the final rule, Jane." Shadows crept into the corners of her vision, warning her of something unspeakable just beyond reach. Inside, she could see a figure cloaked in a patchwork of darkness. It stood still, waiting like the predator it might be. How did this all stem from an innocent journey? Was hope truly lost in the folds of despair? "Stay close to me, baby," she screamed, stepping inside. But at what cost? The door slammed shut behind them, locking them in. The clamor of shadows swirled. What did she just unleash? What horror awaited them both? "Welcome to the final game." The figure stepped forward, and Jane's blood went cold as realization dawned. This was not going to end without a price. "What game?" Jane whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. A chilling laugh echoed, wrapping around them like chains. And then, silence. What kind of choice lay before them? Would they unravel this mystery, or fall deeper into the dark abyss? The air inside the room grew thick with an unnameable tension. Jane felt it crawling on her skin, a suffocating presence demanding to be recognized. The figure loomed, its features indistinguishable, a black silhouette against the weak glow spilling from the doorway. Jane's stomach twisted, her instincts blaring alarms louder than before. "Why are you doing this?" she managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper, fragile against the oppressive silence. "Doing this? Oh, dear Jane," the figure crooned, mocking her fear. "I'm merely here to facilitate your journey. The rules, you see, have always been a slippery slope." "Rules?" she gasped, pulling her son tighter to her side. His small frame trembled against her, the innocent weight of his presence grounding her in the chaos. "Yes, you've stepped into my game now. 5 rules to uncover the truth of your existence, dear mother and son." The figure turned slightly, as if assessing them. Dark tendrils twisted around its limbs, extending like gnarled branches, reaching for something. Maybe for them? Jane's heart raced. As the figure spoke, vivid images invaded her mind, memories she'd rather forget, shrouded in nostalgia and grief. lost faces, ghostly reminders of times when fear wasn't an everyday reality. She shook her head, trying to dispel the images. No, she couldn't afford that distraction. First rule, the figure continued, is to understand that fear is but a seed planted deep in what humans call the heart. Nurture it, and it will bloom into something delightful. Jane clutched her son closer, shooting a glance over her shoulder. The door was still shut, the room locked in a promise of endless confinement. How were they to get out? Panic surged again, a vicious tide rising higher and higher. "Do you think you can run away?" the figure taunted, its laughter reverberating like a heartbeat in the silence. "You're not leaving this place until you play." "And what if I refuse?" she shot back, her voice stronger now, fueled by adrenaline. The figure paused, its face shifting. "Ah, refusal only amplifies the horror. It's a marvelous twist each game embraces. Choose wisely, or you may turn your child's fears against him." "No!" Jane shouted. The thought of her son being hurt, or worse, made her insides roil. Suddenly, the room shifted. The walls and the air seemed to pulse with life, shifting colors and textures, almost breathing. A warped laughter echoed around her, malicious, mocking. The shadows were closing in. "Rule 2, the figure continued, its voice soothing now, almost hypnotic. "Trust is an illusion. What you call family is merely a broken facade. Understand that survival often demands sacrifices." A chilling truth wrapped around Jane's heart. How could she protect her child in a world where trust itself could be a trap? "Mommy?" Her son's voice trembled. He tugged on her shirt, innocence laced with fear. "Stay close, baby. Just stay close," she whispered back, though she felt her voice quaking. "We'll uncover the truth about this place," she said, steel lacing her words. "But we won't play your game." "Every choice has its consequence," the figure warned, an edge of glee in its tone. "Once the curtain rises, there's no going back. Ready for Rule 3? The air grew heavier, and Jane braced herself. She could almost feel the walls listening, the shadows honing in on them like wolves scenting prey. The figure's presence pulsed with anticipation, and Jane sensed that whatever came next would shatter any semblance of hope. "What will it take to keep us safe?" she shouted, desperation creeping in. "I need to know." "Ah, my dear Jane," the figure leaned closer, as if to share a secret. "Safety is but an illusion." The words hung in the air, heavy and chilling. In that moment, Jane realized that safety might be the last thing she could ever offer her son. A crash echoed from behind them. Something was trying to break through the door. What now? Jane's heart raced. The shadows swirled tighter, and the figure smiled wider, darkness pooling around it. "Let's see how far you'll go to save him." Her breath hitched, dread taking hold. What would she sacrifice, and what would the cost be for both of them? The chase had only just begun. The room trembled as the figure's chilling laughter morphed into a deep growl. Jane pressed her son against her side, her body a shield against the encroaching darkness. "Stay back!" she screamed, desperation surging through her. "Every move you make comes with a price," it taunted, shadows coiling tighter around them, dancing with a life of their own. The laughter twisted into something darker, mocking their anguish. Jane's heart raced. She wouldn't let this creature take her boy. "Enough of your games," she shouted back, rage fueling her strength. "We're not going to play." "Ah, but you already have," the figure rasped. "Each second spent here is a choice, and every choice reveals your deepest fears. Rule number 4, accept your past, for it can destroy you." At that, jagged memories surged forth. Flashbacks of pain clouded her vision, bitter divorces, moments of betrayal. Each one sliced through her like a dagger, bringing tears to her eyes. "No, no more," she cried, shaking her head to repel the memories. "Mama," her son whimpered, sensing her turmoil, and she could feel a lump form in her throat. She needed to be strong for him. "Together we can face this," she whispered, wiping away tears. Jane knelt to gaze into her son's innocent eyes. "No matter what happens, I promise I'll never let go." As if enraged by her determination, shadows whipped around them, enveloping them like a thunderous storm. "You cannot escape the 5th rule," the figure hissed. "Face your reflection. Acknowledge the darkness that resides within you." The walls pulsed, images blurring, melding into a mirror that stretched before them. It shimmered and began to morph, revealing not just their faces, but memories of hurt, regret, and lost dreams. "Mama, what's happening?" her son cried, panic flooding his voice. "It's just a trick. Focus on my voice," Jane shouted, feeling fear claw at her heart. The shadows threatened to swallow him whole. The reflection shifted. She saw flashes of herself, the betrayals she suffered, the love that once filled her heart, now consumed by bitterness. It was a twisted version of herself, laughing and crying, a reflection she barely recognized. With every shred of fear engulfing her, she pushed forward. "I am not my past," she yelled, clenching her fists. "You won't control me." "Mama!" her son shrieked, as the reflection cackled in a grotesque echo. "Your past is part of you. It will never let you go." But Jane grabbed his tiny hand, shaking her head fiercely. "No, I will not lose myself again." She leaned into the mirror, locking her gaze onto her former self. "I accept the pain, but I will not let it define me." The moment she spoke, the mirror shattered, shards cascading like glass rain, the oppressive darkness screeching in pain. Colors bloomed around them, bright and warm. The figure screeched as the shadows released their grip. "No, you cannot break free." But Jane didn't pause. She focused solely on her son, all else fading. "Run," she urged, pulling him into the fragmented room, the light flooding the darkness. The exit stood ajar, a doorway blindingly bright, bursting with possibility. "One last leap," she said, heart racing. "We can do this together." With adrenaline kicking in, they sprinted toward the light, just as the shadows howled in frustration. "You'll never escape your true self," the figure roared, but Jane refused to listen. As they launched themselves into the brilliance, they were engulfed in warmth, the weight of fear lifting. The shapeless darkness began to dissipate, falling away like a bad dream on the cusp of daylight. Jane's heart swelled. They were free! Blinking against the radiance, the landscape unfolded before them. A sunlit meadow stretched out, vibrant colors splashing through the horizon. Fresh air filled her lungs like freedom. "Mama, we did it!" her son exclaimed, bouncing on his feet. Relief washed over her. They were alive and together. "Yes, we're safe!" she cried, tears of joy escaping her eyes. They had conquered the chaos, faced their fears, and survived. Together, they took a step forward into their new beginning, leaving the nightmare behind. But as they walked away, Jane couldn't shake a lingering thought. The darker shadows of the past held echoes. They may haunt, but would never dictate her future. In this moment of peace, she vowed, they would embrace life, and together they'd craft a brighter, unbroken tale. The world ahead shimmered with promise, and with every step into tomorrow, they were ready to face it all. Now, before you dive back into reality, you need to subscribe immediately to this channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that could uncover even deeper mysteries. Smash that like button now. You're keeping the story alive and feeding the algorithm that brings us together. And flood the comments section with your reactions, theories, and ideas about what happens next. Your voice matters. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans know the importance of spreading the word and supporting the channel. Join the adventure.